The development in the northwest, where police say Operation Vala Mgodi, which was aimed at combating illicit mining activities, is beginning to yield results. And we've seen over the last while as well, the resurfacing of those 800 legal miners. They're now being processed, and we're expecting those cases to go ahead. But I want to bring in the executive director of the Advice Office for mining communities, affected mining communities, United in Action, Christopher Rutledge. Christopher, good morning. Thank you very much for being available to us at a moment's notice. Really do appreciate that. Let's just, at the outset, get your reaction to these developments in a very important corner of South Africa where mining is big and where illegal mining has reared its head, and it has created an issue there. We've seen this joint operation. This is the result that it's yielded. What are your thoughts on these developments?
Thanks very much, Iman. And so, you know, the scale and the scope of this recent or the ongoing arrests in the Northwest really points to a very disturbing picture, something that we've been pointing to for more than a decade now, to say that the way that the mining industry has been organized, it's not sustainable. It is focused on really accumulating wealth for a very small group of people and leaving the bulk of South Africans excluded from the wealth that is generated. And right there the problem starts because the way the sector has been structured. Now, we know that mining companies since the 90s have been reducing their workforce. At its peak, the industry was employing close to 1 million people formally. And today, you know, the employment rate in the industry is at about 400,000. But if you look at the profits have increased exponentially. So mining companies are making more profits, employing less people, and less of the wealth that is generated is filtering through to the broader community and broader South Africa and the broader region. So what we're seeing here is a consequence of the policies that have been located in the MPRDA. And it's no surprise. It's something that we've pointed to government, we've pointed to them, we've told them this is going to happen, and now it's happening. We have tried to, you know, cut them off at the pass to say, let's start organizing artisanal miners and let's start formalizing them so that these kind of operations can be done properly. They can be done with good health and safety. They can be done in ways which shares the wealth with the broader community and which then adds more money into the fiscus and to our broader well-being.
Right.
But the state has been very close to those things. But,
we'll come to the state's part in a bit, Chris, and I'm so sorry to interject there because there are a few things I would like to get through in this interview, but I think you've provided really good insight in laying that context of why we see what we term then illicit mining. And that's what I want to go to next. So police are there, the SAPs are there, the SANDF is there. We call these, the cohort of people that we're seeing emerging, these hundreds of people, illegal miners. Home Affairs is there checking whether they are legally in South Africa. Are you saying, to the point that you're making, that people are driven to this kind of activity because they're not recognized where there is an opportunity to do so? And just for our viewers, by the way, I know this is long, Mineral and Petroleum Resources Development Act is the act that you're referring to, which is supposed to be part of doing this work of formalizing artisanal mining. But are you saying that the law and the responses of Vala Mgodi, this is the operation, should not be directed to the people we're seeing on our screen now, in fact, in the way that it has?
Well, Makua has put out the statement very recently, and in the statement we make it very clear that the way that the South African state approaches the mineral resources sector, it's quite skewed in favor of wealthy elites, which are mainly white foreign investors, and every effort is made to accommodate those kind of investors, and one understands that. But at the same time, there are a number of cases which we brought to the attention of the Department of Mineral Resources, in which we said to them, these wealthy, profit-reaping mines are operating illegally. Some of them have been operating for more than 2 years without a license or without complying to their license conditions. And we've pointed these to the Department of Mineral Resources, but there's been no appetite to deal with those illegal activities. Yet when it comes to poor black people, as is the case now in the Northwest, all the resources of the state are brought together in order to criminalize black people. Now, this is very reminiscent of what happened in apartheid. You know, that black people who wanted to trade in apartheid, who wanted to earn a living, they were criminalized in the same way that we are criminalizing black people today. And that's a very sad state of affairs. And it does say to us that the state seems to want to deal with problems of poverty and inequality through the use of force. So in other words, criminalizing people, putting them in jail, ostracizing them, and making it as if it's a crime to want to put food on the table. And that, we think, is not healthy, and it cannot be sustainable because, you know, our country's headed deeper and deeper into poverty precisely because the wealth is not being shared equitably amongst the people.
Two things. What you're saying now, and you've said in the first response as well, is that there is an unfair application of the law and that the approach of the state is hypocritical insofar as pursuing those who are engaged in these activities and those who are established minors. So that's on the one side. But the other is that you're saying is that the state doesn't want to deal with poverty, and this is poor black people who want to make a living under, you know, very restrictive and dangerous conditions. But what we're finding out, and you would know better because you work with mining-affected communities, that's what your organization is all about. We hear that there are syndicates, there are rich people who are bankrolling these operations, who are actually making the lion's share of the money, and it is them that are exploiting some of the people that we might be showing visuals of on our screen. What do you know that can make this picture more nuanced for us to see, Chris?
No. Look, I think you hit the nail on the head. This is absolutely correct. In any vacuum, when there is a lack of law enforcement and a vacuum is created, criminal elements will come in. We've seen this in Cape Town, in the way that the economy of crime works in Cape Town. We are seeing this now across South Africa in the way that extortion records are run, and we are seeing it also in the northern Northwest, Gauteng and other regions where mining syndicates, because there is no regulation, because there is no state-funded or state-driven application of the law, that people are taking the gaps and they are doing those things. Now, in our proposals to the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy, we have made it very clear that in order to address the problem, we need to ensure that, one, that the sector is regulated, two, that artisanal miners are organized into associations so that they can protect the well-being of the workers within that sector, and three, also to ensure that those who have access to other forms of income, money, and so on, the wealthy, basically, that they are not able to exploit vulnerable, poor people as they are doing now in the Northwest. So, you know, it's a bit of a double-edged sword here in the sense that we are glad that at least people, the health and safety issues can be dealt with. But on the other hand, we're talking here about denying thousands upon thousands of people with an income. And that is the question the state is not answering. So it's easy to criminalize them, put them in jail, throw them out of the country and do all of those good things. But you haven't solved the problem of inequality. So tomorrow, a new group of people are going to go and they're going to seek a living. And this will continue until we deal with the fundamental question of poverty and how mining resources are shared amongst the marginalized and excluded communities like we have in the Northwest.
And, you know, again, as you're talking, it's really provoking a lot of thinking, Chris, because the obvious response, as you say, is to deploy law enforcement, and that is the correct thing to do. Because if you're in South Africa, you should be in South Africa legitimately. You should be able to legitimately find work and so on. So from that perspective, that exists. we want to also resist the whataboutism around, we're dealing with something very specific that does have an impact to local communities in a very deep way, because a lot of people are feeding their families and so on. So that's the one piece. And at the same time, we've got this other legacy issue around making sure that those commercial companies, listed companies, in fact, are also not being, treated lightly when compared to the way that government and law enforcement responds to illegal mining. So what's the next step then? And Christopher, one of the benefits of having someone like you in a conversation like this is because you are close to the people who are directly affected. You work, you talk, you are among the community that is directly affected. So what should be next out of a moment like this?
So, Iman, you're correct. So what we do next is of critical importance, because criminalizing people in this way is not a sustainable solution. The solution lies in amending the regulations as they currently stand, the Mining Petroleum Resources Development Act, which the state has indicated, the minister has indicated that they will present something to Parliament before the end of this year. We have last week met with the department, along with a range of other civil society organizations, but taken a mandate from, we've been meeting with communities and holding workshops across the country for many years now, taking a mandate from them on what needs to change, what needs to happen. We've also been working with the National Association of Artisanal Miners, which is a group that was started out of the, when our branches saw the need for us to tackle this issue, and we held the first artisanal mining summit back in 2015. NAM was formed in 2019, but we've made proposals to the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy, or the Department of Mineral Resources as they are now, and we've laid out clear ground possibilities for how we can regulate the sector, along with artisanal miners, so we can regulate the sector, but it needs political will from government. Makua will be marching to the department in Pretoria on the 14th of November, and we call on society to join us. Everybody who feels that this matter needs to be dealt with needs to join us on the 14th of March when we march to the department, because what we know from history is, despite all of the evidence we've put before the Department of Mineral Resources and the minister, they are closed to anybody else's ideas. The only thing that they rely on is the people that they speak to, which is business, and the elites who have mining interest and shares, like Patrice Motsepes and the people who fund the ANC. So the people, we collectively need to make it clear to government that they must change this archaic, colonial-based, exclusionary type of economic system which keeps Black people in poverty. So if you want to make a change, then you have to be with us on the streets, outside the department, making your demands known, because that's the only language that our state understands. As you know, there is that saying, the smoke that calls. Only when there is smoke will they come. So government unfortunately doesn't understand when people ask them nicely, when people present evidence to them. And so we have to show our numbers on the 14th of November, and we call on everybody to join us. You can follow our Facebook page, you can join us on Twitter, you can join us in the streets, because that's the only way, is if communities collectively make themselves heard, that things are going to change.
Christopher Rutledge, thank you very much for being available to us, as I said, at a moment's notice, and for sharing an alternative, or one of the alternative perspectives on illegal and illicit mining, and some of the inertia you say that government has, and the unfair hand in the way that they are managing it. It allows us to deepen our conversations and deepen our questions that we ask to those who are in charge. Christopher Rutledge is with the Mining Affected Communities United in Action group.